got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society. And here we are once again to gas up your mornings. It is Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. And I did not spend the last week in Las Vegas like someone I know did. Jay Anik, how was UFC 310 and going out to Sin City?
You know, for those of us that like to gamble, I never don't love going out to Vegas, right? So it was great, right? And for me, bro, to be honest with you, and I can call you bro at this point.
Of course.
It's such a privilege. I go with my brother out to Vegas. I do a little bit of work for UFC Fight Pass. I get to hang out with the welterweight champion of the world, Bilal Muhammad. But being able to sit with my brother John and watch the fights from that perspective and, you know, be with Joe and DC and just be in the belly of the beast like that is it's something that I don't take lightly. During the fights, we sort of hop upstairs, Bilal Muhammad and I, up to the upper deck where they're doing this sort of watch along. And so we hang out up there with Forrest Griffin and Jens Pulver. It's just a great night, great experience. And it's also, Gresh, for old guys like us at 7 p.m. local time for the main card, not 10 p.m., which is such a gift, bro.
You know what's really funny is whenever we go to UFC, we always go to Posh Burger afterwards in the Aria. And I remember saying to my kid as the main event's getting started, I said, you know what? We'd be gearing up, getting ready to go to Posh Burger in the Aria afterwards because we knew the fight was ending. And I love your point on the whole, it's like 10 o'clock West Coast time, and that card's over with. You still have an evening to go have whenever you're out on the West Coast. Here's my question. Did they know who Bilal Muhammad was when he went upstairs for the little meet and greet thing? It wasn't like when he tried to get in the ring and they were stopping him thinking he hopped the rail.
Well, Joe didn't do him any favors getting on the mic saying sort of, oh, they don't know who the champ is. Right? Bilal, you can be sure all the security guys know who Bilal Muhammad is because yes. Bilal Muhammad treats everybody like gold and knows all that sort of that whole. The bottom line is the security thought perhaps he was trying to do something he shouldn't be doing. That was what it was. So he's very unassuming. He wouldn't do anything like that. But yeah, it's really interesting, right? Bilal, we are much more Bilal's camp, and I consider myself part of that camp. We're all just focused on sort of the fight, and you know, he thought there was a lot of tape. He thought Gary did a lot of good. As I shift toward sort of to the fight, he thought Ian Gary did a lot of things very well in terms of putting himself in positions to sort of not get finished by Shavkat Rakhmonov, which was the fate of everyone else prior in the UFC. So, but it was not an interim fight, but it was Shavkat Rakhmonov over Ian Gary by unanimous decision. The winner will get Bilal Muhammad when he's healthy enough to compete.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I know we'll get into more UFC 310. I had to make the jokes because I saw you sitting there. You always place yourself behind either Megan O'Leary or DC or in between both of them, just behind them, so that I can find you at these fights and text you and needle you and give you the business.
And I appreciate you texting me, and I know we're going to get to the card, but as one text that I did receive from you was about Eric Anders,
that's right.
Better known as ya boy, and I'll go there now because I love Chris Weidman as a human being and as a fighter. But Gresh, when I tell you, you and I were the only ones that liked Eric Anders going into that fight, not only in New York, but even those that liked Anders with us, that few people that were on our island when they were supposed to compete in New York at middleweight, you know, moved to the Weidman side for this catch weight at 195. Boots on the ground, Gresh. Nobody liked Anders to win the fight besides me. My brother texted me simultaneously when you did, just because we just hadn't liked what we had seen from Chris over time.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And I hated that he changed the song. It changed the walkout. It changed the feel. It changed everything. Good Even point. My youngest goes, oh, wait a minute. What? Oh, he changed his song. And then at that point, I was just like, okay, now I'm all in on Anders. But brother, let's jump all into not only the National Football League, but let me ask you this. Is there anything that's eating at you as we sit here on this Tuesday morning? I know we got week 15 of the NFL. The college football playoff is finally out. We're going to dig into that. We have UFC to go through, but is there an itch you need to scratch today?
Other than the National Football League, where I'm just constantly itching all over my body because I could talk about it every week. My perspective changes every week. It's such a gift. Week 1 goes to week 15 so quickly, Gresh. But other than the NFL, that's the only thing I'm itching to talk about right now.
I'll tell you what, I know that we'll get to it, but, the college football playoff, they expanded, and you think, oh, maybe they're getting it right. And yet, once again, we still have at least a little bit of controversy going into it. But, brother, let's jump right into the National Football League. And look, I know it was last Thursday, right? I get it, but come on. How happy were you just as a fan in watching Dan Campbell do what I would say would be some real Jason Anik football? He's going for it on fourth down. He's rolling the dice all the time. I know that on this show, we have a great affinity for the Detroit Lions, but boy, oh boy, that win going all the way back last Thursday against Green Bay, it stands out for all the reasons why some people just love Dan Campbell.
I agree. And when you see him in the locker room post game, and it's not the first time we've seen Dan Campbell in the locker room post game, but I have been on this sort of diving board, if you will, that I say, the Lions party is going to come to an end before they hoist the trophy. Someone's going to come into town and upset it, whether it's a division opponent, Packers. I don't think the Vikings could do it, or it's a Matt Stafford coming in, slinging it. Something's going to happen to this Lions team. And that game and that coach and that night made me really question what I'm talking about. You start talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, start talk about sort of karma in the building, talk about feng shui, talk about playing for one another. I'm an intangible guy, Gresh. So give me all of it. I'm glad you went back to Thursday night because you don't always do that on a Tuesday show.
Yeah, and it was so unbelievable of Dan Campbell going for it and rolling the dice and getting down and coming back to win. It's just a real testament as to kind of how locked Detroit is as a group right now. It also further drives home that Philadelphia right now is a mess. And in the NFC, Philly is just behind Detroit in the standings. But in reality, doesn't it feel like Detroit is like this? They're together, and then the Eagles are like this, and a bunch of people just kind of squawking at each other.
Yeah, great point there. And I guess A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts used to be better friends than they are now. That stuff matters, right? It has to be almost like a family. Like they talk about it being like a family, but it really has to be, right? Like almost like an environment. Like I ran a business down in South Florida for many years, and the environment we ran, everybody was happy to come to work and laughed. And if there was any beef, it was like your family. So the next day you're cool. Tom Brady, I think, did a great job creating a great environment like that. It's a great point about the Eagles. And there's also some X's and O's stuff, not just the intangibles that maybe this Philadelphia team needs to worry about. But what, they've won 10, 11 straight, Gresh? I mean,
and that's the thing. They're on a heater, and they went out and got one of these salty old ball coaches for defense. Apparently that doesn't work anymore. But when you look at I see the Philly offensive guys squawking a lot. I don't see the Philly defensive guys out there bickering with each other. And, that's got to be a reflective of the head coach at some point, because that guy's the one who's running the offensive side. And if he can't get those guys to really all get along. The Bills were beaten by the Rams 44-42. I love it because I hate Buffalo. I know you love Sean McVay, but in all seriousness, in the AFC, that's a really big loss for the Bills. They do have the tiebreaker, but they're 2 back in the loss column now of Kansas City.
I agree. But you know what? I feel like I've almost pulled a complete 180 on this number 1 seed, right? Because there's only one number 1 seed, right? And as a Patriots fan, getting the 1 seed or even the 2 seed, well, the 1 seed, really, you win a home game, then you host the championship game. But for some of these teams that are great, that could finish 13-4, or even at 14-3 and still not have the 1 seed, I don't know how much it matters, right? And we're going to get into this. The KC, obviously what Kansas City did last year, beating Baltimore and Buffalo on the road. How good they may need that 1 seed because maybe they're not as good as they are last year. But yeah, it's a big loss for Buffalo. But I think you got to be playing your best football at the best time more than necessarily prioritizing the 1 seed at this point.
Look, I think for everyone 2 through 7, I sort of lean towards your end of you got to be playing at the right time, because you're going to go from the regular season right into the playoffs. But we know this from being around the Patriots forever, that bye, okay, the bye is what really kind of propels sort of these teams who just find a way to win a little bit. I mean, that wasn't a great win for Kansas City. It was an ugly game, but they found a way to win. It's what the Patriots used to do year in and year out on their way to getting that number 1 or back then number 2 seed, because the bye really mattered. So I think for Kansas City, it is absolutely critical For everybody else, they would love to have it. But if KC's going to win the thing, and they're plus 450 right now to win the Super Bowl, God, how do I not jump all over that number?
I hear you, right? Well, so Chiefs remaining schedule, right? So they do have a 2-game lead on Buffalo and Pittsburgh, right? But I think they're still vulnerable, even as we sit here approaching week 15, right? 3 of the last 4 on the road. They go at Cleveland this week, right? And it's not like Kansas City's been world beater. Jameis Winston's live every Sunday to some extent. Is he not, right? So you go at Cleveland, then versus Houston. Texans had a bye last week. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do. A lot of people think they're live to come out of this tournament that is the NFL postseason. Then you're at Pittsburgh, week 17 for Kansas City. That game's going to matter. And then at Denver to close it out. To what extent? Denver's probably going to need that game, and Kansas City very well may need that game. So to me, I don't know, a lot can happen. Bills could go in here off a loss and get angry and win at Detroit. So this league's amazing. My sort of takeaway from this week is that rather we've sort of talked about the cream of the crop and only a few teams could win it. I think there are 10 teams that could win this tournament, win the whole thing. At least.
Yeah, I think I got 3 or 4 maybe who could win this whole thing. Kansas City is definitely in there. The Lions are in there. I do wonder about Philadelphia. I'll tell you, Pittsburgh's playing a really nice brand of football right now. And I know, again, I always rag on the Justin Fields people, but Russell Wilson has come in and made that offense better around that dopey Arthur Smith. And then in the NFC, I really wonder if the next best challenger to the Lions are in their own division, because it does not look like San Francisco is going to make a glorious comeback and get into this thing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the reason that I have shifted from sort of talking about these elite versus thinking it's more wide open is because a team like the Ravens that's under the radar, that at this point, to me, I'm more of a pretender than a contender, but oh, well, you got Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh bringing the troops to town in the postseason. Anything can happen. And I think the Ravens last year, the 1 seed didn't do them any good. Hey, maybe you hop in and see what happens, sort of floating on a little bit of a magic carpet. So look at this as we look at the postseason picture. What do you see, Gresh? What do you like?
I mean, the Seahawks do nothing for me. Neither do the Buccaneers. The Vikings are probably, for me, after Philadelphia, the next best team. The Broncos and the Commanders should be really happy to be there.
Yeah.
And none of those bubble teams scare you whatsoever. In the AFC, I know we saw Cincinnati win last night against Dallas. That was more on Dallas with the Leon Lett 2.0 play. And we know that Dallas is cooked, but there just is, what we have again, we're now emerging from the NFL being mid to now we're learning the teams that are good. And in the next month, the teams that hope they're good can prove they're good enough to show they're ready for the postseason.
Let's talk about the Steelers for a minute. And I didn't intend to do this, but it's sort of when you said, oh, there may be 3 teams for me, and then you bring up the Steelers, right? Mm-hmm. You think about different things. And what if we get a Steelers-Ravens postseason game, division
Love
opponents? So the Steelers, right? As I'm out in Vegas and I'm trying to think, a lot of the time I get out there before the week happens in the NFL and then the week happens. But the Lions were, I think, plus 275 to win it all, somewhere around there when I began the week. And then you had Eagles, Bills, Chiefs at 5-1. Right? Sort of in that second tier. And then you got the Steelers sort of floating at 25-1. And I know their schedule's difficult, right? But I think they're a little bit live. I already took the 4.5 this week coming up against Pittsburgh. So to me, right, a Pittsburgh Steeler team with a good defense. I don't think their defense is great, but it is a good defense. And Russell Wilson sort of been there before. And I love the head coach. I love the leadership. Why couldn't a team like that make a run? Great chance to be the 2 seed, maybe even sneak into that 1 seed if they can beat the Chiefs head to head.
I'm not going to go that far, but I will say this. I think when you have a quarterback and a coach that appear to be as connected as Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin appear to be, that's a great start towards doing really big things. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jay, are the perfect example of complementary football, right? If they got to win 16-10, well, the defense grinds it out and the offense doesn't do anything stupid. If they got to throw it to Pickens a bunch of times in the end zone, they do have the ability to do that because that Pickens-Wilson combination has been working. So, and the one thing you got to love too is Mike Tomlin, a guy who's been there, done that. And, I see this video going around all the time, Jay, of him, meaning Tomlin, yelling at a Pouncey brother and being like, no, you're out there fighting. Everybody is out there fighting for the first down. You get your ish together. Come on, boy. Pat him on the bum and tell him to go. That's someone in real life who would goozle the hell out of you. That's one of those pouncy boys.
No doubt about it. And this is the best chance he's had, Mike Tomlin, in a long time, I think, to make a deep run. You could tell me till I'm blue in the face about him going 9-8 every year and how many years he's finished the regular season above 500. But I will say, Gresh, man, a lot of this is about making a run sometimes. And we know the Patriots, everyone hates me saying this, they went 10 years without a title from 04 to 14. And some of their best teams existed in those times. As we were the coach of the year markets, I played Tomlin 5-1 when I was in Vegas. Talk to me, Gresh.
Hey, you know what? That's not a bad one to, throw some pizza money on or something like that, because he could end up winning this thing. I kind of feel like for coach of the year, Dan Campbell is almost the leader in the clubhouse. And as long as they're the number 1 seed, then maybe they don't end up screwing it up. However, I do think coaching matters in the playoffs. And you made a really good point, because I see Jim Harbaugh there at plus 850. He's not going to win the coach of the year. However, you now have not one, but 2 Harbaughs in the postseason. You still have Mike Tomlin. Again, I'm not a huge Sean McDermott fan, but again, the guy's taking the team deep, and Andy Reid's hand is stamped. If you look at the coaches on the AFC side, they are stacked with playoff experience in their own way. Throw Sean Payton in there as well if Detroit gets in. So I think the coaching is a bigger wild card than we think come playoff time. Brother, let's get to the college football playoff, because I know my man Jason Anik is now all in, because he got the thing that made it easy. And I'm not picking on you, but I think there are a lot of people who say, ooh, now I got a bracket. Now it's a little easier for me to kind of follow along and figure out these matchups and things like that. But the college football playoff was set, and there's no Alabama. No 3-loss Alabama making the top 12. Why don't we start there? Were you surprised? Oh, Bama didn't get in.
So I root for Alabama, actually, whether it's because they remind me of the Patriots and the Saban-Belichick connection, right? But the beautiful irony that the first year they go to a 12-team playoff, and you could say maybe Alabama's 13, right? That one team out. I think there are times during that 14 playoff era where Alabama sort of got in, maybe where another team may have deserved an opportunity. So for me, I don't even say this in a negative way. I just think it is beautifully ironic that Alabama is that, because I always said when you get to that 12-team playoff, I don't care about team 13 in the way I care about team 5 or team 3 when it was just 2 teams. So I can't get enough of this, Gresh. And yes, when you talk about having a bracket, I could go on for days about a bracket. Like I look at a matchup like SMU Penn State, 11 versus 6. And for those of us casuals, 11 versus 6, I could tell you I'm more excited for that 11 versus 6 matchup, because there's a little Cinderella potential or whatever it is, juxtaposed to some sort of big matchup at 1 versus 4. But I will say, Todd McShay, who knows a lot more than me, was on with our guy Ryan Russillo and talked about just SMU and Alabama and their strength of schedule compared to a team like Indiana, who hasn't beaten a team in the top 25.
Yeah, I look at Alabama not getting in as kind of the just due for the Power 5 conferences. And if I can scratch the itch a little bit, these Power 5s have tried to gear everything towards them for so many years, because they're the ones that really control college football. And now, because of the dopey rule that they tried to shove in there of the top 4 highest conference teams, highest conference winners end up getting the bye, you now have Arizona State and Boise. And when you look at their rankings, they're, I think, 9 and 12 in the playoff, but somehow a 9 and a 12 ended up getting a bye because the power conferences wanted to gobble it up for themselves. Well, politely to those people, I say, good for you. I'm glad that, Ohio State's got a host. I'm glad that Penn State's got to go play a game. All these Power 5s who thought, well, it's automatic that we're going to be able to, just get right in here and we'll grab these top 4 spots and it'll make it easier for us to keep all the money. Now you have not 1, but maybe 2 Cinderellas in there. So good for the Power 5s. They got it stuck right up their ass.
Very well put, and very interesting as you sort of break it down from that standpoint. But once you move past that and sort of deal with what you're dealt with, it is absolutely riveting. But it is just so funny how for a team like Texas, you go for an opportunity. They really had a lot of moments to win that game. Some early field goals against Georgia where they should have punched it in the end zone, and look at here, that Texas Clemson. I don't believe they've ever faced.
No, they haven't. We are going to get some cool matchups. There's no question. But we're looking at the DK odds right now. Boise State, Arizona State have no chance whatsoever. So you can cross them off the bottom. SMU, it'll be tough because they got to beat, what would it be? A whole bunch of Power Fives, and they're just coming up from the American Athletic Conference. I love Indiana. I hate the bracket that they're in and sort of where they got stuck. So now I'm a little down on them. I wonder if Clemson is a little spunky here, but I can't go away from Oregon, Texas, Georgia. If I'm going to put money down on those teams, I'm getting 360, and 450 on each of them for $50 each. I have no problem laying it on one on or really all of those three and give me a winner out of there.
Love it all. And how about the opportunity for the Ohio State Buckeyes? And a lot of people, however you want to laugh at the Ohio State Buckeyes, you take care of the Tennessee Volunteers at home. You play the Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl. Give me all of that if I'm a Buckeyes fan, just in terms of the opportunity to really flip that Michigan result on its head.
Totally agree. And I wish I had a little more faith in Ohio State. I think the confidence has been shaken. I'll tell you, Tennessee going in there ain't easy. That's not the matchup that I'm sure that Ohio State was kind of banking on. And I know we'll do a little more college football playoff. The one good thing is we have some time, because these kids, Jay, they got finals and stuff.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
You get it.
Oh, yeah. I was Mr. Class, let me tell you. And then UFC 310 is you and I circle back. Let's get to the biggest controversy of the night. And I thought UFC and ESPN did a great job of putting the video out of Dana White talking to Alexander Volkov after he got screwed by the judges. He beat Cyril Gane, should have been 29-28 going his way. But the betting world was rocked by that. I know my kid, my youngest had a parlay. He was waiting on Volkov. We're sitting there thinking, oh, buddy, you cashed. They announced the decision and we were gobsmacked.
Alexander Volkov won that fight. My brother John used the word robbery, and he does not use that term, doesn't like using that term, and uses it very rarely. Alexander Volkov had won 4 straight in this division prior to that. And so, yes, the money, yes, the gamblers, but for the fighter, and even if the UFC takes care of him financially, John always talks if you're a contender and you lose a fight in a spot like that, I'm not saying it was a number 1 contender fight necessarily, but it's a 2-year setback. For Alexander Volkov, who knows what's going to happen with John Jones in that heavyweight division, but I look at him as a big body for Tommy Aspinall, so a big setback there. And I almost sort of pulled up a tweet for this, but I believe there was a fight that Volkov fought in many years ago in Russia where he maybe didn't deserve to win. And so there were some similar judges that were on the card tonight. I should have chased down the tweet, but that was fascinating, Gresh. Did you ingest the whole main event? How much of the card do you sit down and watch?
I watched the whole thing, brother. I was tip to tail watching the whole thing. And just quickly, for those who might have missed Dana White and Volkov, here it was after the fight, after the decision, where everybody was rolling their eyes. You got there you go. So you got Dana there, and he's telling him, listen, you got screwed. We're gonna find a way to make it right for you. I don't know how in the world that happens, but from the gambling standpoint, you're just kind of screwed on some of these bad decisions. And I think we're starting to get more and more people who are like, do I want to bet UFC until they clean up this officiating? You mentioned the main event, and bro, let me tell you something. Alexandre Pantoja, I just step back and be like, yo, dog, like you're on it, man. That was such an impressive performance against a guy that he knew very little about. I mean, I don't know who you line up next for Pantoja, but that fight was more than impressive. They're flying dudes in from Japan to try to beat this guy.
Bro, like the fact that you did this physically, like that's how I feel. All right. Teddy Atlas, it's sort of, it almost become cliche that we take this Teddy Atlas line that champions become 20 to 30% better. Now, this is now his third title defense, but Alexandre Pantoja, I wish the best of luck to anyone who's going to face this guy next, right? A lot of those Kai Asakura body, knees, and strikes would have, I think, finished other flyweights of decent sort of merit. I think he's going to have a good career in the UFC as well. Alexandre Pantoja, I like the human. And even when he calls out Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson and he talks about it's not about the money, it's about being the best. Like he is really sort of cut from a special cloth as a human. And my brother talks a lot about when these guys learn English and their English grows, you start to get to know them more. And we're getting to know Alexandre Pantoja a little bit more. What a special fighter. He's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion, based on that, because if that's his peak that night, I'm just blown away. And to get the finish the way he did, it would have been 5 rounds of deep waters had he not gotten the finish. I'm blown away too, man.
When you beat everyone in the top 10 in your division, you've done something, and that's kind of where Pantoja is at this point in his career. More impressive, Vicente Luque or Michael Chiesa? I mean, they were both great.
Great question. And Vicente Luque, who is still a young man, just turned 33, but a lot of people sort of see him on the backside down the mountain. I think I got to go Vicente Luque to answer your question just because of how quick it was. And he was the underdog there against Themba Gorimba. A lot of people liked Themba quite a bit. And I'm happy for Luque. I got to know him a little bit. But also for Mike Chiesa, I think it's good. I just think the opponent for Luque and the time in which he finished him I would give him the nod.
I guess what I didn't realize about Chiesa was that he had that kind of performance kind of in him. You know, you're right. We look at these guys, it's almost like the NFL now, is it not? Where as soon as in the NFL it says your name, comma, 3, and then whatever the age is, it's like, they're on the back 9. But in reality, that isn't the case. I think, you know, these guys sharpen their skills, and when you're 34, 35, 36 years old on the whole, I still think you can go. The drop-off happens fast, but I mean, Chiesa was dominant, and I did not realize that that was still in him at this point in his career.
Well, and I think so much of it, there's so many variables and factors, but I think, you know, I talk to Bilal Muhammad a lot as he doesn't eat his French fries and goes to bed hungry while we're out there, that a lot of guys just aren't married to the game to that same extent, right? And, you know, Max Griffin, his opponent, said he's best he's ever felt like he had an amazing camp. So his disappointment level is through the roof right now. So it's a little bit difficult to tell where these guys are. But one thing I want to say, and Cody, you feel free to, you know, I know Nate Landwehr, who a lot of guys like, Do Ho Choi, who I tell you right now, I don't even know where to begin, right? I was so blown away by this guy's performance. He looked like an elite martial artist. He took a few years off, I guess, in South Korea. There's mandatory, I guess, you know, whatever it is, military service. I don't know if he was waiting on a waiting list or actually serving, but he was certainly working on his mixed martial arts skills. And I'm not trying to sound crazy here, but I was blown away. He showed Nate Landwehr there's levels to this. He was on a completely different platform than Nate Landwehr from a gambling standpoint. Man, a lot of people like Nate, but BetMGM, the most handle, 88% of the handle earlier in the week was on Do Ho Choi. So there was some smart money coming in. I mean, you know, sometimes it's not public money, sometimes it's smart money. But I just want to say something crazy for a second, right? Think about the champion in that division, Ilia Topuria, right? Okay. And he's talking about going up to 155 to face Charles Oliveira. I know Volkanovski might get his shot, but this guy Do Ho Choi, and I don't know the full extent of his skill set, but he looked physically and the way he was striking that I couldn't help but think about Ilia Topuria. I know that sounds crazy.
No, it does sound, it is quite a jump, no question. However, I don't think it's a completely ridiculous one. And like you said, Choi looked amazing in that fight. Chase Hooper looked really good as well. I know we talked about him last week. Yep. He got the job done. Nothing better than I saw the meme going around where Chase Hooper is just kind of like going like this and kind of just, yeah, everybody. And it's like, oh yeah, that guy could kill you with his hands, but he's just standing there kind of waving very funnily and all that kind of stuff. So we're a half hour down here on this edition of Gas. We are flying today. Make sure you get us on all the social media, on Twitter at Gas Show AM. I'm everywhere from YouTube on down at The Real Gresh. Same for at Boston Anik. You can get our guy producer, Cody Merrow, on Twitter, Cody_Merrow. Get us on Twitch and everything as well. And of course, Jay's got the stuff with the Odd Sharks guys. Although I did see you did a little stuff yesterday with them. So are you double dipping this week, or did you slide it up?
Oh, we're always on that consistent schedule, right? Couple days a week on the huddle with you here. I'm with my brother on Anik versus Anik on Thursday mornings on Odd Shark. Yeah, we're part of like 599 podcasts a week, Gresh. We're just trying to find something that'll anchor into the bottom of the ocean, you know?
I like it, baby. I'm completely with you. And let's slide into, we're going to do a tiny bit of baseball here, folks. So, don't. Like, here, I'll do this. I'll be like, listen, okay, here we go. We're going to end up getting into some baseball because Juan Soto has decided to go to the New York Mets for 15 years and $765 million. We were joking about $600 million.
I know.
Over $750 million. That is amazing. And the Red Sox were just this close. Go ahead, Jay.
So a few things I want to say, and I really actually want to get your thoughts, but it is interesting that the last two digits ended up being 6-5 as they were in Mookie Betts' $365 million contract. That if I'm John Henry, man, I just slouched down in my chair, but wouldn't you like that one, Johnny? But, I will say for me as a Red Sox fan, do I think that the Red Sox were in it? I do, and that matters to me. I don't think it was some smokescreen farce. So I'll say that. I'll also say, as a Red Sox fan, the fact that he didn't go to the New York Yankees, right? When this contract ends, I'm going to be 61, Gresh. I'm thrilled that he's not going to the New York Yankees. I wish him luck trying to win a ring with the Mets. He already won one with their division opponent, the Nationals. But I guess what I want to ask you is, do you agree with me that they really maybe had a chance, and that there was maybe a moment where Juan Soto, sitting alone with his thoughts, had that moment where I'm really going to do Boston?
No. And I don't want to burst your bubble. And I know I have been when it comes to this. I did, but no. And you used the phrase last week. I think it was better than this, right? In getting after me on something. Come on, man. Please don't be that kind of Red Sox fan. Well, it's like, well, he's not going to be with the Yankees now. We should all be incredibly disappointed that that the Red Sox, they could have matched that. Now, look, if the deals were within 10 million of each other, right? Because I've heard the Red Sox went to 700 million and they wanted to throw one of their, out after a couple years in there, which there is a 5-year out. But I think the Red Sox were more of a 3-year out, which is so typical John Henry of the, well, I'll write you this mortgage. However, the number might vary a little bit. But no. And I think this is prototypical Red Sox. And now, what happened with the old Red Sox, Jay? They would have got mad. They would have pivoted, and they would have gotten someone by now, even if it were like a free agent pitcher or something like that. I'm not kidding.
No, I really
but I really wonder if people want to come here.
Well, I see, but it's such a great question, and it's not a quick thing to discuss given the financial picture, not knowing what they're really committed to doing long term. I think people want to play for Alex Cora, right? And your point's very well taken that I joined that game. Oh, at least he's not in the Yankees. Well, I don't think people want to go play for Brett Boone, right? I mean, Aaron Boone. You think he enjoyed playing for Aaron Boone? Is Aaron Boone just the man where I bet Alex Cora moved the needle? I bet the Red Sox organization did move the needle a little bit. I mean, how much you want to go play for the Mets? Is that just like extraordinarily more appealing than playing for the Boston Red Sox? What I'll say is the way this sport is financially, even juxtaposed out was 10, 15 years ago, I'm not as interested. It bothers me. I don't love the way it certain teams aren't even in any of these conversations. So
I think that there's the classism is back in Major League Baseball, even though there is the rev share. Now, how about this? the Mets go and get Soto, they're still plus 850 to win the World Series. So while you and I are wrapped up into this signing, there's also the thought that, oh, well, the Mets just spent $750 million on a guy, and they still need to turn around and spend another $500 million on players just to be competitive. The Dodgers are in at 380. The Red Sox right now are plus 3,500. But we'll see if they go out and get some pitching, because really, if you fix the bullpen, you might be able to get this to an 85-win team. Then maybe you're one bopper away from becoming a 92-win team, and now you got a chance at something.
I agree, and we are, local New England guys. Aroldis Chapman, talk about fixing the bullpen. No, thank you. I don't like that signing.
I don't either.
Even, that doesn't. Oh, you fixed the. No, you didn't fix the bullpen with that signing. I'm not a fan of that signing. You talk about these World Series odds. Yeah, 35-1 is interesting. The Red Sox do have a lot of good young bats and a really good farm system, and I do think Rafael Devers is a special bat in a lot of ways. I think we'll see maybe some more leadership. He's still young. But yeah, we'll see if they can go get Max Fried. I think Alex Bregman would be a great fit in Boston, and I think would provide maybe some vocal leadership that they need. But when Alex Cora is running the team, it keeps it interesting for me, because I believe in him to such a great extent, and I think he keeps them competitive even when maybe they don't have the roster to do so.
I do too, and as I've said to you, you'd love Alex Cora if you had a chance to meet the guy, because he really is everything that people say, and you understand why ball players are drawn to him. I never thought in our Bill Belichick discussions, Jason Anik, that we would talk about Bill Belichick maybe going to the University of North Carolina. All I hear is PD Pablo, right? Can you imagine, they announced Belichick to this thing, and all of a sudden there's PD Pablo out there, North Carolina gonna raise up, and Bill's bopping, you know what I mean? With the hoodie up, and the girls behind him, oh my God, I got naked to this one, you know what I mean? But I'm blown away at this even possibility. I do have a deep theory on this. However, when you heard Belichick in North Carolina, I'm curious as to what went through your mind.
Well, so he's had multiple meetings. The first meeting, I was like, whatever. I didn't even think twice. And then when he had the second meeting and I started to think about it, I thought, they could talk about now, these NIL deals. Does he want to deal with that? My first reaction was, please, no, I want him back in the National Football League. I've enjoyed so much seeing him, even, seeing him with Peyton Manning and seeing him on this media. I want him back in the game I love, was my first reaction. But then when I started to think about it, right, and you hear him talking about running it sort of more like a pro team and changing things a lot, I get a little bit excited. And I think about, right, I'm starting to get excited about college football right now with this 12-game playoff. You bring Bill Belichick as the coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, right? I love that baby blue. I'm buying gear. I used to root for the Boston College Eagles. I would be a University of North Carolina fan. The college game would mean, honestly, Gresh, to me, I would have a team, and I've been started wanting a team my whole life. Belichick would give me that rooting interest, so that gave me a little excitement, but still, ultimately, I'd much prefer him to stay where he belongs.
I think Bill Belichick wants to stay in the NFL, and from people that I have heard from, all of the, I don't want to say cronies, but Matt Patricia's around. You got Mike Lombardi around. Guess who is sitting in his house in Foxborough doing nothing right now? That'd be Josh McDaniels, who's just collecting a check and looking at the college landscape along with the pro landscape. So I think he would be able to put it together quickly. And Bill sort of told us the pitch, Jay. You mentioned it. The whole, we'll run it like a pro program. Basically what Belichick is saying is, you can listen to all these other jokers, or you can listen to somebody who will prep you better than anybody else to go to the National Football League. And it's not about winning. And that's what makes that potential hire so dangerous, because what if the guy does win and he can put all 8, of the rings on, walk into a living room and say, do you want one of these at some point in your life? I'm going to be the best guy to help you get one. It could be a scary proposition for college
There's so
football.
many storylines. And how about Bill Belichick? All right, Drake May, he may win one up in New England. I'm going to go back to where Drake May was, and I'm going to win a title where he could have won one at North Carolina. But Cody brings up an interesting thing, and I thought about this, right? Cody says in the chat, only reason to take this is to get your son a Saban type deal, right? And I do think it's funny. There's Steve Belichick up in Washington right now. I don't get enough Steve Belichick in my fucking life right now on my television screen, right? Give me all of that. So, I'm so curious if Steve Belichick can coach football. But anyway, I do think maybe the college, I thought about that too, Cody, like the college game, Belichick being able to bring his sons in, but he can do the same thing in the NFL. Gosh, Gresh, I guess gun to my head, I really want him to stay in the pros.
Yeah, I do too. And I did put up I put up a tweet thinking of the UNC end of this, and their athletic director, his name is Bubba Cunningham, right out of Central Casting, right?
Love it. Yep.
So my thought is, this is the guy, meaning Belichick, that would allow Bubba Cunningham to say to agents, screw you. So here was the tweet. UNC is using Belichick as a cost shield. Schools like UMass are now paying $1.3 million for a head coach. So what do you think North Carolina's got to pay? Now UNC can fire back to the agents of these candidates, your guys in Belichick, whenever they have their ridiculous ask for all this money to come in and run their program. I do think Bubba Cunningham might have shielded himself a little bit. But on the other end, Jay, I think Belichick is using North Carolina to move the needle with Jacksonville to give him, meaning Bill, everything he wants.
I think this is very interesting. I would tend to agree with it. I think as a component, but there are a lot of variables. This makes sense for everybody, right? Hey, I'm sure they've had certain conversations that could have gone down like, hey, us having these conversations is great for everybody. Let's have some conversations and just talk. And so I think that's all well and good. But I do think, Gresh, that there is sort of a little smoke where there's fire, meaning if Bill Belichick really wanted to take over a program, I do believe from a North Carolina standpoint, they're certainly on the map in terms of basketball. The way that this program could get on the map in terms of football, especially with the restructuring of everything, I think it would be a home run and worth every penny of that $10 million a year or whatever it might take.
I'm totally with you. It would be it'd be really interesting. Here's the thing about Bill Belichick, folks. He has made $200 million from Robert Kraft. And even when people are like, yeah, set up the kids. No, he set up the kids. There's a trust with 20 million in it. Like, really, for like each one of the kids, not just like for one kid that they're all going to chop the pot. This guy's got a butt ton of money. I don't think Bill is making decisions on money anymore. Hell, he bought a house for his ex-girlfriend. I mean, what are we doing here for crying out? He's got so much money. This man needs assets. Let's get to the NFL, Jay, because in week 15, we would normally go through the 5 best games on the card. Well, there's only one game in the 1 o'clock window that's worth a damn, but oh boy, the rest of these we could really sink our teeth into.
Yes.
And how about this one on Thursday night? Rams and the 49ers. I'm not saying it's going to end up being a massive game in the playoffs, but essentially I kind of see this as sort of a back-end playoff eliminator. How do you see Thursday night?
Yeah, man. And I love talking about this game because this division, in a way, went from being not interesting to super interesting. You rewind 3 weeks ago, Arizona's there at the top, I believe, and everyone else is a game back of them. And it's fascinating to me. I believe the 2 teams we're getting Thursday night are the 2 teams that, if they can get into the dance, could really make a run. Whereas I don't believe in Seattle. Arizona's not in the conversation anymore, but I don't believe in the Seattle Seahawks, even though I think they've won 4 straight at this point. I don't think they could make a run, but I think this game is dripping with excitement Thursday night. They talk about the NFC postseason. I think it's going to be difficult I think you're going to have to go at least 10-7. 9-8 ain't going to get you in as a wild card, but this division is still open. So I'm fascinated with this game. I think both of these teams, I think one of these 2 teams has a great chance to win a playoff game if they get in. Certainly they're going to be hosting it.
Yeah, I think the Rams are starting to play pretty well. And again, they don't play a lick of defense, but they went out and beat the Bills. So we know that the Rams are feeling good about themselves. Tough to go from Sunday night to Thursday. That is a quick turnaround, but nevertheless, it's the Rams and the 49ers on Thursday night. And it does still mean something in that division. The only 1 o'clock game, Jay, that I saw that really jumped out was the Dolphins at the Texans. Now, I know you mentioned that maybe some people that you were talking to in Vegas are just, some people are maybe smarting on the Texans at this point. I mean, clearly the game is bigger for the Dolphins because of where they are in the standings, but I don't know what to make of this game. I really don't, because I don't respect the Texans enough to think that the trend of the Dolphins losing to good teams necessarily holds up here.
Yeah, and especially too with, I mean, I obviously like the Texans coming off a bye. I think that's a good thing there, and I think that it probably came at the right time. The Texans have been, there are a lot of NFL teams that are Jekyll and Hyde, especially from a gambling standpoint, right? The Kansas City Chiefs, if you flip the outcome of one-score games this season, they would be 2-11. Right? If every one-score game in the NFL went the other way, the Chiefs would be 2-11, right? So when I think about the Texans versus the Dolphins, I agree with you. This is a game when I look at the slate and I'm thinking 5 games against the spread, this is one of those games that is in my pocket of layoff on my first instinct where nothing jumps out at me either way. I don't think the Dolphins are really in this picture. I really feel like they needed to win that Thanksgiving night game against Green Bay to really make some noise. But I do think for the Texans, who I do look at as a subtle contender, I think they need to develop some momentum here. So if Miami comes in and beats this Texans team, it's going to tell me a lot about what I think about the Texans. But even if Miami goes in here and wins this, I think the steep is it's too much of an ask for the Dolphins to really achieve anything great this season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Dolphins are flawed. Again, offensive coach, tight pants, great, boom. Still can't play, defense consistently enough. The Dolphins right now are 2.5-point dogs as it's listed right now. Going into Houston, I would probably lean Houston. Anything under 3, I think I would take Houston because I do expect them to win this game. Where we've really got business to be done, folks, in the NFL this weekend is in the 425 games and the late games. The 425 games are absolute fire. I don't know which network, Jay, has the doubleheader this weekend, but somebody's probably going to have a solo window of the Bills at the Lions. What a test for the Bills, who went to LA to play the Rams. Now they go all the way back across the country, and then they go play arguably best team in the NFL in the Lions. And that game is, as of right now, sorry for the quick check, it is Lions -1.5 as we talk about it here early in the week.
That gambling line, I want to get back to that because that gambling line does surprise me a little bit. But I'm going to talk to you about the Bills Lions. But in case we don't get to all these 4:00 games, you have at 4:25, Bills at Lions, Steelers at Eagles, Bucks at Chargers, which matters, Colts at Broncos, which matters. There's a lot going on there. But the Bills at Lions, 1.5, right? I feel like the Lions maybe would be, have been sort of that designated locked in 3 points for being at home. I do like the Bills coming in here a little bit angry, maybe after losing. And we've seen a lot of defenses in the NFL. Even there was a night game several weeks back where the Seattle Seahawks did whatever they wanted in Detroit and moved the football all over the field. This game, to me, Bills at Lions, is another one. I hate to say it. I'm not trying to be laying off everything, but that game to me, as when I sit here Tuesday morning, Bills and Lions, there's way too much information for me to learn to have a strong feeling one way or another. If I'm forced to give you something or give a play, because the Bills lost last week, I kind of like them to get back and bounce back. I think maybe they can fix some of the issues on defense last week. I also think the Lions have sort of been in it, right? They've really been in it. And that Packers game, I know a little bit of extra rest, but I think they're sort of thrown through the gauntlet a little bit here. And this Bills team, I think I don't know, I would lean Bills right now, but I was hoping to maybe be able to take 3 points.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get up to 3. I envision this will be a skinny line. I'm going with the Lions, because I think they're the better team, but also at home, I really do like Lions totals. This one is already up to 55. So that might be the line that I take a peek at because we're at 55 right now. That's 28-27. Just there. I think one of these teams are getting into the 30s. So for me, I think I'd lean the over. You mentioned the Steelers at the Eagles, and Saquon Barkley's having an unbelievable season. This would be a big showcase game for him in terms of his MVP odds, but it's Philly -4.5 at home against the Steelers. that feels pretty heavy. I'd be leaning Steelers in the 4.5 right now.
Absolutely. I already played it. I tied a bunch of NBA favorites. I'm sort of at this point tying some different things. So
I like it.
Steelers will stand alone. My brother John and I like to do that a little bit. You look at some spots where you see a game you like, you tie a couple favorites during the week to it, try and increase some of the value a little bit. But this game fascinates me greatly. I'm looking at Steelers about 5-1 to win the Super Bowl. Excuse me. Eagles about 5-1 to win the Super Bowl. Steelers come back, depending on what markets you're looking at, 25-1 last week, maybe about 20-1 this week. But if I'm Mike Tomlin, I mean, another gift for Mike Tomlin, come in there, cross-state rival, to go in there and sort of show them who you are, especially with a Philly team. Their passing game is, I hate to even say it, but kind of in shambles. I think Philadelphia prioritized stopping Saquon Barkley. Maybe they can. I love the Steelers. I think they have a great chance to go in and win. But, the Eagles feel a little bit like the Chiefs. That you almost got to just bet the money line every week because they just find a way to get it done.
How special a season is Saquon Barkley having? He's 110 scrimmage yards from becoming the 18th player in league history to have 2,000 scrimmage yards in multiple seasons. And he'd be the fourth guy to do it for two teams. Pretty special. And this is the game where I think if Saquon's going to win the MVP, Jay, this will be the game that we would look back. It's competitive. It's against an AFC team. It's against a team that people really respect. I'm sure Tomlin's going to put just the tongue bath all over Saquon this week. So if he goes out and has a big one, sets a record, NFL history, next thing you know, I think Saquon Barkley, who is live, becomes really live in this MVP race.
Oh, I love that you just said that. I played Saquon Barkley to win the MVP when I was just out in Vegas, plus 525, prior to Josh Allen's 6-touchdown record-setting fantasy football. I know they lost the game.
Love the number.
Josh, what'd you say?
I love the number. 525 on Saquon at this point.
Right? I mean, if you achieve, and while we're there, I also played Brock Bowers to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year when I was out there, just because Saquon and Brock Bowers both have chances to achieve something that certain tight end numbers for Brock Bowers as a rookie that could eclipse some things, right? I know Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels may be favored here in that spot, but so we look at the regular season MVP, Saquon plus 450, so plus 525, we'll see. But I agree with you, Gresh. He needs one more sort of big statement game, couple touchdowns. If he has a game like Jamar Chase had last night, I really think he could be even more live. And shout out Joe Burrow, who really is the most valuable player in the NFL for me, despite his team not being able to play a lick of defense.
Yeah, the Bengals are in a bad way right now. I mean, they won a game last night somehow against Dallas, which is pretty amazing. And then I think Jared Verse is starting to lock in on that defensive rookie of the year, as I see that up on the screen as Cody's got it there. The Bucs are at the Chargers, brother. The Chargers are 3-point home favorites against Baker Mayfield and crew.
Can't get enough of this game. And Gresh, it's interesting, right? John and I do this show Thursday mornings at 11 a.m. and where we have to pick 5 games in the NFL against the spread every week. And we used to do it on Tuesday night. We would submit our picks, and now it's sort of Wednesday into Thursday. But as I sit here on a Tuesday morning, I almost take the luxury of not wanting to make a specific selection, right? But I love the Chargers in this spot, just sort of off the cuff, right? The Bucs, to me, it's like I don't believe in Baker Mayfield long term, right? Aiden O'Connell threw a terrible interception at the goal line that kind of flipped that game a little bit. Baker Mayfield threw a awful interception a few weeks back that flipped a game where they were, I believe, on the road at Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken. They're just big opportunities. So I absolutely love the Chargers at home here, especially coming off a loss where they really played well. I think a lot of people think the Chargers are kind of live to maybe make a run in the AFC, having that sort of formula to win games in January. But I love the Chargers here. Are you with me?
Yeah, I do. I like the Chargers. I just don't have a lot of faith in the Bucs. And I like Baker Mayfield. He's perfect for like a second round out. And if you're okay with that, then that's where you're going to land with Baker Mayfield. Yeah, Chargers -3. I like a lot. You got the Green Bay Seattle game. I know that's going to be on Sunday night, but you got the Colts and the Broncos. And it's not a sexy game on paper, but Jay, as you mentioned, for the Colts, it might be their last stand. And how about Denver winning with Bo Nix? Bo Nix has the shortest odds for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Here's the thing. He should win because he's playing a losing team. He's beat up on the bads and lost to the goods, which is kind of normal for a rookie on a team that is way more competitive than, say, a team like New England.
Yep. And so Bo Nix, second shortest odds of the offensive rookie of the year at plus 225. Jaden Daniels minus 250. That was that market where I played the Brock Bowers there. But I like the Broncos a lot here. The Colts, if Richardson is really the quarterback right now, and I like his skill set, he's fun to watch. But if I were a Colts fan, yes, thumbs down. If I were a Colts fan, and I believe Shane Steichen probably would agree with this, head coach, that's not your guy for the future. You need a quarterback. You agree with that, Gresh, by the way?
Hell yeah. That's why I was like, Anthony Richardson. I mean,
he's not the dude.
No, if it's one of those guys that, look at him. He can run fast and throw far and da-da-da. He can't think. That's what you got to do to be a quarterback. You got to think.
Yeah, so I absolutely love the Broncos here. That'll be a game that I'm looking to play probably in my 5. Very similar to that Bucks-Chargers game where I think that the Chargers and the Broncos, while I don't necessarily think they're going to find their way out of the AFC, I think they could make some noise. I think the AFC is wide open. I really do.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I still think Kansas City is good, but who plays Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, I think it's definitely up for debate.
And I've talked to some Bills fans about what teams may scare them the most coming in. And some of the matchup, they say styles make fights. What if you're the Bills and you got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in, or Lamar Jackson? As a Patriots fan, that was the guy. If the Patriots were live right now and you were to say to me, what team do you not want to face? Oh, it's the Ravens. Oh, John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson? No, I don't want them coming to Foxborough under any circumstance. So
I'll tell you who I wouldn't want to play would be the Chargers.
Really?
Because it's a team with some defense, a good quarterback, and finally a head coach who has been there and done that. On Sunday night, it's Green Bay at Seattle. And have you seen what's been on the internet on this Jordan Love after Toyotathon the last 2 seasons, right? So for those who don't know, and who knows, maybe Toyota's watching right now. And they say, wow, we love these 2 guys. We'll slam our logo on there. But so Toyotathon begins on like November 15th, I guess, around the holidays, right? So Jordan Love, the last 2 seasons, before and after the start of Toyotathon, as wild as this is 2 different guys. So before, it's 29 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. After, 24 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It's been amazing the last 2 years. This guy's kicked in like a turbo booster down the stretch. However, this might be a really bad matchup for Green Bay. I like Seattle in this game, and I never thought I would say that because you were the one who started to open me up to what Green Bay could be this year within that division. I just don't know if going to Seattle is a great spot for them right now, although Seattle plus 2.5-point home dogs.
Yeah, I definitely lean Green Bay in that spot. I was forced to give out sort of a list of 5 contenders yesterday on the huddle, and Green Bay rounded out my 5 because that's just a team that I absolutely believe in any given Sunday. And while we could talk about Dan Campbell in that game Thursday night, Green Bay showed up and they were live, and a few plays here and there, that football game can go the other way. So they're at Seattle here for Green Bay, then versus the Saints, at the Vikings versus the Bears, right? So, to me, that's a team. And I look at, you think Matty LaFleur doesn't think he can win all 4 of those games and go into that postseason as a real juggernaut? So, see, I do think it's a tough matchup, potentially a tough place to play, but I actually believe that the Packers are going to be in a spot this weekend where they show people that they're just on a different level than Seattle.
Well, I know that we are close to wrapping up this edition of Gas. We're gonna leave you with a KO for us to kind of talk about, but make sure you're getting us on social media. I am everywhere at The Real Gresh. That's from YouTube all the way down to the Tick and the Talk, where maybe I do some dancing.
Oh,
you got to go find out. You can get at Boston Anik, everywhere at Boston Anik, Twitter, Instagram. You can find Jason Anik out there. And congratulations to John on winning it's a World MMA Award, correct? I want to make sure.
World MMA Award. And I will say one thing, shout out my guy, Saif Saud, right? So at the end of John's speech, he said something about my mom, right? I didn't know that was coming. That got me a little choked up. Saif Saud flipped the camera from John to me, got me a little choked up at the end there, which for my 72-year-old mother meant the world to her. So shout out my guy, Saif Saud. But yeah, the World MMA Awards, fighters only, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good on John. Congratulations to him. Did he mention you at all?
He did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Right.
At the end.
Right. Right. He was, yeah, close to the end. He's, referred to me as your best friend and thanked me. I said, I'm not your, back at that movie back in the day, I think it was Boiler Room. I'm not your girlfriend, Seth. I'm your father. I'm not your best friend. I'm your brother.
All I remember is the song. There's no sex and no violence. And in there, they just go, and my asshole brother, which I thought he would drop like on the stage or something.
Yeah. But dude, I'll tell you, right. I'm a big being in the moment guy and not recording on my phone. So even like a lot of it, I dare say I was recording it for my mom, and you give me this brick and I don't like having the brick, and I like being in the moment, right? When I'm at a concert or an event or something, I'm the only guy that's not holding up my phone. So it was real special.
I like it. Well, good for, happy for the family and happy for John as well. And let's end on a 2-second knockout. Apparently these things do exist. And while in Russia, there are people fighting on top of storage containers and things like that, this was a bare knuckle fight. And ladies and gentlemen, you're about to watch the whole fight. And I'm not kidding. Here we go. Boom. See you later. That's it. One punch KO, done. And then the guy stumbled around and tried to like tackle the referee and things like that. I just like, there's the guy's like, what? I didn't get knocked into another planet. That is fair. And I love
right.
He's
done.
Yep.
And he knew, right? Well, and it's dude, fascinating. Love the quick finishes. And when Vincente Luque finished Gorimba, right? And Gorimba went to sleep, you could just see so clearly when he woke up what happened. So this guy coming up, getting mad at the official, hard to blame him because he didn't see those 2 seconds that we saw.
No, like, not at all. He squared up and then he woke up.
Yeah, bingo. So.
I love it. Well, good stuff there. Thank you. Good job today by Cody Merrow as well, and kind of shepherding us through all of this. And there you go, the fastest hour in sports and gambling, baby. We have just dropped it on you with gas. We are here for your mornings every Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. That's 8 on the West Coast. So you're waking up drinking your coffee. You can watch us while you're watching the markets out there on the West Coast. He is Jason Anik. I'm Andy Gresh. Cody's our producer. Follow us all on social. We'll see you next week here on